Today, we're taking a look at Banco of Brazil's, I forgot I'm Brazilian, Banco do Brasil, Banco of Brazil's second quarter of 2025 earnings presentation. And in short, results came in weak. So let's break these numbers down and see if there's an opportunity right after the disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only. It's not a stock recommendation. I'm not a licensed financial advisor. Do not make decisions just because you watched a great YouTube video. Do your own research or talk to a professional before investing. Alright, results were worse than expected. The bank posted a profit of just 3.8 billion reais, down 49% from the first quarter and 6% from last year's second quarter. For context, they made nearly 19 billion in the first half of 2024, and this year only 11 billion, which means a 40% drop. Now, unless things turn around quickly, which I think they eventually will, profits could settle at much lower levels. The big story here is its guidance cuts. They revised down the expected loan portfolio growth. Before, the expected growth up to 9.5%. Now it's on 3 to 6%. Net interest income was revised down to 102 to 105 billion versus up to 115 billion before. Provisions for doubtful debts raised massively, up to 56 billion. That's a very high provision for cost of credit. The original estimate was 38 to 42 billion. Operating revenue and expenses stayed the same, but another key point is profit expectations. Before, they expected up to 41 billion. Now, the new expectation is only up to 25 billion. That means they don't expect a strong recovery in the third or fourth quarter. Doing some quick math, they're talking about 5 to 6 billion profit per quarter instead of the 9 billion from the first quarter. Gross margin fell 1.9% in the quarter and 4.6% year to date. Credit costs jumped. As a percentage of the portfolio, they hit 4.6%. In 2024 was basically half of what the bank's provisioning now. Looking at expected loss flow, agribusiness had almost 8 billion in provisions, a strong deterioration in the second quarter. Year to date, credit costs jumped 6% compared to last year. The expanded credit portfolio grew 11%. For most banks, that's good, but for Banco do Brasil, which used to deliver 19 to 20%, it means they've slowed down on lending money. Operationally negative, but positive in the sense that they're focusing on quality instead of quantity. Delinquency rate on loans is also increasing. Last year it was almost 3%, now it's 4.2%. For individuals, delinquency rose from 4.8 to 5.6. For companies, from 3.4 to 4.2. And agribusiness, that's the scary one. Delinquency over 90 days jumped from 1.3% to 3.5%. That's huge for a sector that normally has the lowest default rates. And things get even more complicated when we look at the whole context. We've got high interest rates here in Brazil, plus the fall of soybean prices. And soybeans are the main product for many of Bank of Brazil's clients. That means debt is getting more expensive at the same time product prices are dropping. On top of that, recent climate issues have added even more pressure on the companies. The result, higher default rates in the agribusiness sector. On the corporate side, the main concern is with micro, small, and mid-sized businesses. The expanded credit portfolio had been growing quite a lot, but the bank decided to slow things down. I see this as a positive move because here's what's happening. These companies are struggling heavily with the high interest rates here in Brazil, taxa Selic, which is currently at 15% per year. The tough economic environment in Brazil is pushing many of them into default. Even though some loans have guarantees, the bank is still highly exposed, so that's why it makes sense for Banco do Brasil to be cautious when lending to micro, small, and mid-sized companies. One smart move the bank has made is expand its high-income client base. These customers tend to default less, which means the bank earns a better net return from them. Service revenues were flat, down 1% year over year. Dividends, another negative. Payout was officially cut from 40 to 45 to just 30% for 2025. So, weak results, Profit down 6% year-over-year, guidance sharply revised down, payout reduced. What does this mean? They're being conservative, keeping cash inside the bank to reorganize operations, and in the future, once things stabilize, they may increase payout again. So to recap the highlights, margins are down, credit costs are up, and delinquency is rising across the board. Second quarter profit 3.8 billion, down 6% year-over-year. Profit guidance cut from 41 to 25 billion. Dividend payout cut to 30% instead of 40. The bank itself is expecting weaker results ahead. Because it's state-owned, Banco do Brasil is cyclical. It has strong volatility that gives long-term investors opportunities. Looking at their return on equity, it's the same pattern. Sometimes very high, 16 to 20%, sometimes very low, 8.8% in 2016. But the long-term average above 16% is excellent. And poor results like this has happened before, and the banks always manage to recover. Anyway, this is a wake-up call for the market. Prices will need to reprice not only due to lower profits, but also lower dividends. At least it's what I expect. But does this mean Banco do Brasil is no longer a good company? Not at all. Let's not forget, it's a giant company with decades of history. It has survived multiple market cycles. It has consistently delivered dividends and long-term returns. Yes, results fell, but Banco do Brasil is simply entering a new cycle. For value investors, that could mean new opportunities. And remember, Banco do Brasil pays dividends frequently, sometimes up to 9 times a year. So even in a tougher environment, shareholders can still expect cash flow. Even though they made a new announcement, this time the bank won't pay dividends in advance. Instead, everything will be paid in December. They were expected to announce it around now, but that won't happen anymore. So, after these weak results, the conclusion is simple. Banco do Brasil isn't broken, it's just adjusting. Cyclical as always, which means opportunity for those who are willing to hold through volatility. Thank you for watching. I'm the Brazilian investor, literally from Brazil. See you next time. Muito obrigado, forte abraço e até a próxima.